Hey, Juliet.
Hey, hi Sam.
Hey. So 7.5 minutes. You've had an idea for how we spend those 7.5 minutes. Before we get into the idea, what's prompted it, I guess? What's the context that has brought that idea to mind?
Yeah, well, I was just thinking we haven't actually talked about one of the most foundational ideas in our work that we tend to prioritize when we're with different clients and groups, um, whether that's about individual or collective leadership. And
Yeah.
it's an idea around how can we stay at our best more of the time in our work. And it's particularly relevant because the world is so rapidly changing with everything that's playing out in the Middle East at the moment. Just as an example, um, the ripple effects into our organisations are inevitable, but also just on ourselves personally, experiencing that. So there's this need to constantly consider how we're responding to uncertainty and change
Mm.
in the world.
Yeah, and the other pressures that go on. It was World Book Day yesterday. I interacted with a few parents who were stressed before they started work, just trying to sort out the costumes and that real life side of things.
Yeah, the information overload that we all have
Yeah,
with, all the multiple channels of continuous information that we're supposed to be keeping on top of.
yeah.
Um, so, yeah, should we dive in?
Okay, I've done it again. I haven't set up the timer beforehand, but I'm going to do it now.
It's a practice.
Very perfect. I know it is a practice.
It's a very
Okay.
noisy timer.
It is so noisy, isn't it? Okay, so we have 7.5 minutes. So
Fab.
what's the idea, Juliet?
Okay. So, the idea that we share with people in our work is is around the territory of personal resourcefulness, as I was describing. How do we notice when we're at our best, and how do we notice when we're not at our best, and how do we get ourselves back to being at our best when we're not at our best? Um, that feels like a real mouthful. Um, and there is some real complexity within in this idea. There's lots of scientific research that feeds into it. However, we use a very simple framing, which is: are you
Mm,
above the line at your best, or are you below the line, which is when you're not at your best? And we have stolen with pride that idea, or that language of above and below the line, from a consultancy called the Conscious Leadership Group. And you can go online and they have a really neat animation around it. But it's a really accessible way into understanding how we can be emotionally resourceful or stay emotionally regulated as we're going about our lives. And the other really important big caveat to say is this isn't about always being at your best. It's about recognizing that as human beings, part of being human is experiencing the full rainbow of emotions, the good ones and the ones that we don't like so much, that are more uncomfortable. So it purely is about awareness and flexibility. Can we be aware when we're below the line, and can we get ourselves back above? So I wonder if you could bring that to life a little bit for us, Sammy. Could you share an example, either of yourself or some examples that our clients have shared with us, around what it's like to feel at your best at work?
Well, what it's like to feel at my best. So physically I feel a bit looser. I'm usually about 2 inches taller. So I feel like my body is more open, which probably affects my mind. So I'm much more open to ideas, open to challenge, much more open to risk. I'm much more comfortable on the fly. If I'm in that above the line state and you say to me, "Oh, we're just going in here, but something's changed," I'm probably going to find it much easier to respond to that change and feel comfortable and confident that it will be fine. I think that's probably actually a good phrase. Is when I'm above the line, I generally just believe everything will be all right. And if it's not, it still will be. It will just be a different version of all right, or there'll be some opportunity in it. So I have, and we hear this from clients when we talk to them about this very calm, sometimes it's a flow-like state, or an excitable state, but it's super open, and much more collaborative.
Mm.
You know, when I'm in that above the line state, I'm much more likely to ask for help if I need it, or invite new ideas, bring people along with me,
Yeah.
and trust that we'll just be better together. So
Yes,
cheesy.
and that curiosity as well, just like, and like you're doing now, like the laughing and the lightness that we bring when we're above
Yeah.
the line. I always think, for me personally, I giggle quite a lot. I might laugh out loud. Things feel funny, even though we might be doing serious work. So there's a real
Yes.
lightness to things.
Yeah, I can probably distance myself or have a greater sense of my role in something when I'm above the line, actually, and notice what my responsibility to it is, and play that role much more successfully,
Mm,
um, respecting the boundaries of the different people that are in whatever it is that we're in.
mm,
Whereas, well, we'll go to below the line, but there's a different reaction when I go there.
mm. Yeah, lovely. Thank you. Okay, let's go there. Um, so there's some of the words you use to describe when you're above the line. How about when you're not at your best? What do you experience in your
Yes.
body? What kind of thoughts and feelings come up for you?
Yes. So when I go below the line, the little voice in my head is, telling me you're shit. You're not very good at this. They're seeing through you, whoever they may be. You're faking it. They don't trust you, whoever they may be. Or, gosh, they should trust me. I need to prove myself to them. So I probably at times slip into an expert mindset. I'm going to tell you everything I know so that you like me, you trust me again. So I start trying to prove myself a lot, which doesn't exist when I'm above the line. I don't feel like I need to prove myself there. I trust that, that's all going on. But in below the line, I definitely slip into that. I get much narrower in my perspective. That sense of where the responsibility lies shifts. I start taking much more responsibility for things that might not sit with me. So what's probably going on there is I try and take much more control when I'm below the line. I grip harder and hold on for longer,
Mm,
um, as a response to, gosh, the only way that I can get through this, whatever this may be, is taking control and knowing things.
yes.
So that's really useful to talk through. I think that is probably what goes on below the line is a desire for control and a desire for knowledge and expertise.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas above the line, I'm just floating around having a lovely time,
Yeah. It's okay to make mistakes.
being very successful.
Of
Is
course.
the irony here? No, but I mean that's the irony. Is the
Yeah.
above the line state is so much more open, but that's where I will thrive and perform. Below the line, I might get shit done, but I wouldn't call it thriving.
Mm, mm.
It's
Exactly,
getting through it.
because what you're really nicely describing is essentially a self-protection mechanism.
Yeah.
So to bring in a tiny bit of the psychology and the neuroscience behind this, but a below the line state is when we're in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So we have detected in some shape or form a threat to ourselves.
Mm.
It may be that we feel we're going to be judged by others as incompetent or not worthy or not valued, whatever that might be. And so we're trying to protect ourselves. And so it's a completely human thing to do. Obviously, we've evolved to be accepted by the social group. So if we have any sense that that's at risk, that acceptance, we're likely to experience some of those thoughts and feelings that you're describing. Oh, so lovely.
That's our timer, but I think there's a lot of value in us doing this well. And so let's make a confident decision. Let's finish off this conversation in the way that we
Yeah.
wanted
And we
to.
can always do a part two. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So below the line is your fight, flight, or freeze or fawn kicking in to protect yourself. So as you described, literally your brain makes fewer connections and your
Mm.
focus and perspective narrows. And you'll notice it in your body, because often
Mm.
your body will warn you that you're at threat before your thinking does. So you might notice a tight throat or clammy hands, or your heart racing a little bit more, or your breathing
That
becoming more shallow.
crossing over.
Exactly. So all of
Yeah.
those physical signs, this is why it's so useful to become aware of our body when we're at work, because that
Mm.
can be an early warning sign for actually we've gone below the line. So we're not likely to be operating from our best. And obviously
Yeah.
we don't want to lead from below the line, because our thinking and our decision-making capacity is reduced significantly.
Yeah. So I know it made you laugh last week, but when we were describing this and I was talking about your vital organs being on show. But that's how I think about it, is when I'm below the line, I'm literally protecting my life
Yeah.
from that risk. And so I'm closing in to protect all of those. Whereas when I'm above the line, all of my vital organs are on show. And I'm facing into the risk. I'm taking the chance that you won't hurt me.
That's right, because you feel safe and trusted, and able
Yeah.
to trust others. Um, and and so we don't want to lead from a position from where we're below the
Mm.
line. So becoming skillful at noticing and locating, where am I in this moment? And then being able to take steps to get ourselves back above the line is really important. And of course, when we're above the line, anyone who's familiar with the vagus nerve, what's happening above the line from a sort of a physiological, biological, neuroscience point of view, is that we're engaging with people with our all of our facial expressions and our eye contact.
Mm.
So it's a relational space. We connect with others when we're above the line, as well as being able to, as an individual, think more broadly and make
Mm.
connections between pieces of information, so inform our decision making. And our body will reflect that, and that we're unlikely to feel any of those horrible feelings in our body. And we, in fact,
Mm.
often lose track of time or lose a sense of self and just become really present and curious about others. So our whole perspective goes outward. And that's the place we want to be more often. So we could probably talk again in the next one, perhaps, about how do we get ourselves back up above the line once
Yeah.
we notice we're below the line, which we sometimes call our return path. But
Mm.
this simple practice of, where am I? Am I below the line? Am I above the line? And then taking some action based on where you are is a really
Yeah.
useful way to check in with yourself, and possibly share with others when you're at work. And of course, it might
Yeah.
happen to us multiple times in one conversation or one meeting. And we might get stuck below the line as well if we're really feeling at risk.
Yeah. I think that feels like a really important, if we were to round this sort of slightly
Yeah,
extended
yeah,
7.5 minutes off, would be that all we'd recommend right now is noticing
yeah,
that, where am I operating from? What's driving me right now? Am I above the line or am I below the line? And noticing, as you've said, that we do it all day long. I've noticed I dipped during this conversation because your ring hit your table.
Oh, did it?
And and everything in me just went to, sound quality. And then I was like, it doesn't matter. But it's noticing that it just happens all the time, isn't it? And that it may happen mid conversation where something just is said and you just close in a little bit, or you become very certain about your position or whatever it is.
Yes.
So maybe before the next episode, we could just invite people just to start noticing
Yeah.
when they're above and below the line.
Yeah. And then we can talk about our return path. Yeah.
Lovely. Where are you right now, Juliet?
I'm above the line. I didn't even notice that my ring knocked the table.
Because you're in your flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lovely.
Brilliant. Thank you,
Awesome.
Sammy.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.